Okay, so when it comes to protecting our kids from our sexualized culture and the dangers of the internet, which we've already talked about, it's out there. And actually, something I was thinking earlier too that you mentioned, we teach our kids how to protect them against like alcohol or tobacco, but there's like a pay threshold that's involved with those, where pornography, there isn't that threshold. And so when trying to protect our kids from the dangers of the internet, pornography, sexualized content everywhere, what are some of the first steps you encourage parents to take?
Well, we talked about getting yourself educated. So understanding the business model of the porn industry, we have an article about that, and how every click, every tap, every time you are voting for pornography, um, and also getting you're talking about as kids go into a sexualized culture. I really believe that children need to understand the difference between healthy sexuality and porn sex, right? They're 180 degrees opposite. So if you want your child to have a healthy marriage someday, or just even healthy relationships, right? Um, you're going to want to warn them about pornography. We have an article about that talks about 6 or 7 conversations that you should have in regards to healthy sexuality, and how the porn industry shows the exact opposite. So, you know, if you believe that a sexual relationship between a husband and wife should be based on mutual love and respect, um, then you got to know that the porn industry obviously teaches the opposite. So if we can make it very clear in the minds of our children, how they're very different, right? And that gives them more information, that gives them more reasons to reject it. I don't want to watch something that's showing women being violated and hurt and degraded like that. That's not how I want to show up to the world. As they get older, they need to understand that it's linked with that pornography is linked to all forms of sexual exploitation, including sex trafficking. And so you don't want to vote for sex trafficking, do you? Then we can't vote for porn. So I do recommend that parents. So I used to say, talk to your kids about sex by the age of 7. And we have an article, 7 things every 7-year-old needs to know about sex and love, or maybe it's love and sex. Anyway, and 7 things they should know by 7. But honestly, we've had so many people contact us on our social media, our Instagram, and say that their 5-year-olds heard sexual things in kindergarten. And yesterday was my 5-year-old grandson's first day at kindergarten. So I'm like messaging my daughter, read these books. I'm giving her books. Luckily she's close by. And I think that it's the earlier the better. And so you've got to start early. If you can be the first impression, right? I remember reading about a boy who, I don't know, he had been looking at porn for a long time. And by the time his parents finally got around to talking about sex, he just looked at him like they were crazy. It's like, that's not what sex is. I know all about sex. And what you're describing has nothing to do with the sex I know about. And so we want to get started early. I think kids need to be warned about pornography very early. Uh, I have many stories, again, of 5-year-olds being shown pornography on the school bus. I say every school bus in America is a triple X theater, unfortunately,
Hmm.
because little kids are having
Wow.
these devices. I heard a story about a 3-year-old. This was very soul crushing. A 3-year-old who had gotten a hold of a device somehow and was videotaping herself undressing, and they were very disturbed about that. But then they found videos of her trying to have sex with the dog. Now, they looked into it, they did police, everything, and come to find out it wasn't an adult perpetrator that was grooming her. It was porn. She had been looking at porn at 3.
Wow.
She'd seen it online.
3.
Yeah.
She was modeling it. Yeah.
She was modeling it. This is how children's brains go.
Yeah,
right.
We are all wired to imitate what we see adults do. That's how kids grow up and mature into adults. But if they see porn, we cannot blame them or think they're bad kids because they imitate it.
Yeah.
And so that was a very shocking story. But if I heard it from one kid, like, I can't imagine that is not happening to other children. So again, it's never too early really to start having these protective and defensive, conversations.
Yeah. I love the idea of a grandma the grandma author telling her daughters to read my books to your grandkids.
I read them. I read them and she reads them.
That's
yes.
awesome.
Here's a book that Granny wrote I'd like to read to you. But no, I really love that you brought up that distinction of healthy sexuality and unhealthy, because I think there is a danger we can get so fearful for our kids and we're like, pornography bad, but that can branch into sex bad, your body bad, nudity bad, like anything to do with sexuality. We kind of give this message of bad, scary, watch out, and we can inadvertently create kind of these feelings around our own bodies and God-given sexuality that's maybe very negative. And we've talked about this, that for a lot of Christian young kids, they maybe get a message of, sex is bad, dirty, and wrong, and so save it for the one you love in marriage. And then this mindset shift of, wait, now I'm married and it's all good. We haven't equipped kids well to see the two sides of it. And so I love that you brought that up, because I think we want to keep that in mind as parents, that yes, as we stand against the evils of pornography and the way that people are objectified and so harmed by it, we also want to be able to lift up the beauty of God-given sexuality and our bodies and our gender and all that God created to be good and wonderful. And if our kids hear both, then we're equipping them to make those distinctions, to become discerning, and not just have this mindset of, oh, it's all bad, wrong, and evil, but then hopefully when I'm married as an adult, I'll figure out the good parts of it. It's like, no, we really want to equip them for both.
Yeah. And something we talk about a lot here is including our own story as we're talking to our kids. Like, when Daddy was 11 years old, he saw bad pictures and I didn't know who to talk to. And what I found, this many years later, Daddy was still looking at it, and because of that was hurting myself and other people. And so I think that using your story as a communication tool as well to educate your kids, and at the same time, this has been a part of my story, is growing up, I didn't feel like my dad was relatable. I felt like he was Superman. And now he's super wise and is an incredible man, but I didn't see much of his brokenness. And for me, I can't relate to Superman. I'm the Clark Kent in this situation. I can't go, to him and say, well, I'm going through this. You must know what that's like. So I think that sharing our story can also open the door for our kids to see, look, mom and dad are not perfect. And that also says, like, hey, you can talk to me about this because I've been through this before, and I want to help you not make the same mistakes I did.